Just a few weeks ago, the D.C. media was talking about a possible upset in Florida. We don't hear much about that anymore, but let's check in with someone who would know. Florida Senator Marco Rubio, welcome to you, Senator. What is the current state of your race?
Well, the current state of affairs right now is, early voting wrapped up today. I think we got a couple hurricane-impacted counties that'll vote early tomorrow. Obviously, there's still mail ballots coming in. We feel great about the Republican enthusiasm. We have to keep going. As you know, there's a large number of Republicans that prefer to vote in person on Election Day, and that's what we're getting down to now. And so I use this as an opportunity to remind everybody here in Florida that, Tuesday's the last day. If you didn't vote early at this point, if you haven't sent in your mail ballot, you got to show up on Tuesday and you got to vote, and it's important. If we turn out, we're going to win this race. If the only thing at this point that I believe can save the Democrats here in Florida up and down the ballot is if Republicans decide to stay home because they see polling numbers and think it's no longer competitive. Then we would make it competitive by not showing up. So really, I ask people to do two things. Go on my website, marcorubio.com. I still need the help, and come out and vote if you haven't voted already.
All right, Senator, I opened tonight by talking about realistic expectations. In every dealing I've ever had with you, you've been a reasonable person. So if the GOP takes the Senate, what can people realistically expect, given the fact that there's a Democrat in the White House?
Well, I think there's three things. The first that I think you can realistically expect and frankly demand is that we stop bad things from happening. The Senate has that role to play. It's actually a body that was designed in our constitutional system to keep things from happening that are bad for the country. And we certainly have the power to do that when it comes to nominations, which only the Senate does, as you know, but also for all these other laws. I mean, every night we go to sleep worried that Joe Manchin's going to change his mind on the filibuster and we're going to have a federal takeover of elections. We're going to have packing the Supreme Court. So we can stop bad things from happening. The second is oversight, something you did when your time in Congress. If we are in the majority, we have the ability to convene these meetings and have serious committee meetings where you call in these agencies from the Justice Department to the Pentagon, the intelligence agencies, the IRS, the Department of Homeland Security that's in charge of our border, and hold hearings that are real and undertake studies and I shouldn't even call them studies, investigations into what's happening in these agencies that are failing us. The third is, if we have a big enough victory across the country, you would hope it would send a message, particularly to those Senate Democrats up for election in 2024, that the American people are not supportive of some of these wild leftist ideas that they've been pursuing, and maybe the instinct of self-preservation kicks in and they'll join us on things like drilling for more and producing more American oil, taking on crime seriously, keeping the federal government out of our schools, enforcing our immigration laws.
You know, you mentioned crime. It should always be an issue. It's an especially important issue. You're running against someone who spent a large part of her career as a crime fighter. So how have you addressed that, given Val Demings' background as a law enforcement officer?
Well, I actually think that makes it worse. You know, if you've never been in law enforcement or you've never been a prosecutor, maybe, I mean, I'm still not going to agree with you, but maybe, all you believe is what these crazy college professors talk about, not needing to punish crime and not needing to have police officers. She was a police officer. She should have known better. And instead, when she got to Washington, she immediately began to turn her back on the law enforcement agencies here in the state of Florida and across the country. Every single major law enforcement group in Florida, the police chiefs, the sheriffs, 57 of our 67 or 66 elected sheriffs have all supported my campaign, all of the police unions, because as a member of Congress, when they were burning down cities and torching police cars in the summer of 2020, she was calling the riots a beautiful sight. She was saying that the way Minneapolis was pursuing it was very thoughtful. She voted to get rid of qualified immunity. She wanted to get rid of it so you could sue police officers individually. She turned her back on law enforcement, and she actually lent her voice she lent her law enforcement credibility, which she still had at the time, to those who are out there talking on things like defunding the police. So I think it's even worse what she's done.
Marco Rubio from the great state of Florida, encouraging folks to get out and vote if you have not already done so. Thank you, Senator, for joining us on a Sunday night.
Thank you.